Hello, Warren County Schools families. As we make a shift to Plan B, face-to-face instruction, I wanted to provide you with some important information that will help you better prepare for this transition under the Plan B schedule. On the Plan B schedule, students will remain assigned to either A or B to attend school. We will group siblings in the same group. This will allow us to reduce our capacity by half and will provide the opportunity to socially distance. Group A will attend on Mondays and Tuesdays and learn from home on Wednesdays through Fridays. Group B will learn from home on Mondays through Wednesdays and will be in school for face-to-face instruction on Thursdays and Fridays. Families will receive notification of whether they will be in the A or B group. Students will also have the opportunity to remain in remote learning through our virtual academy. Families received a survey in November and December to determine whether they would prefer to stay with remote learning, virtual academy, or attend face-to-face. Students electing to participate in virtual academy will participate in live instruction 4 days a week, and on Wednesdays would be provided with asynchronous or offline instruction. We recognize that this situation is fluid, and we're working to provide flexibility during this challenging time. Our bell schedules are being adjusted to make it easier for us to align our virtual student schedule with those face-to-face students. Beginning times, lunch schedules, and remediation will be at the same time for both virtual and in-person students. As I've said before, Plan B is not business as usual for our schools. We have very specific guidelines that we have to follow to ensure the safety of our students and staff during this time. These regulations come from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. As we review these guidelines, you will likely think this sounds like a lot. It sounds rigid. I agree with the sentiment, but we have to operate within these parameters, and I want you to be sure that everyone understands this up front so that we're prepared to meet these expectations when school starts. If for any reasons these guidelines are not manageable for you and your family, I would encourage you to consider our virtual academy, which will remain an option for our students this year as we navigate COVID-19. For those students who join us face-to-face under Plan B, I know that our school staff will work to make this a welcoming and nurturing environment, even with these strict procedures in place. So let's talk about what Plan B will look like in our schools. First of all, what will happen in the mornings? Each bus driver and parent will be asked to sign a bus contract or attestation that includes specifics on new bus rider protocols. For students riding the bus, they will be screened at the bus stop before boarding. The screening will include answering questions and having a temperature check. At the elementary level, we are requiring that a parent, responsible adult, or older sibling be at the bus stop so that the students with symptoms will not be left home unattended. Face coverings are required on the bus, and extra masks will be provided in the event a student does not have one. Students will be assigned seats and will sit one student to a seat and sit in a staggered pattern on the bus. The only exception will be siblings who will be allowed to share a seat. For car riders, each school will be designated screening points. Car riders will be screened before exiting the vehicle. Students who do not pass the health screening will be asked to remain in the car. So what about visitors to campus? Visitors will not be allowed to enter the building without an appointment. Parents bringing students to school after the beginning of the day or those picking up students early will need to press the buzzer at the entrance to the school to communicate with the office staff or call ahead. All visitors will be required to wear a mask when entering the building. They will need to complete a health screening or answer a series of questions and will have their temperature checked prior to entry into the building. All students will have a second temperature screening as they enter the building. Digital towers will scan students and staff as they enter the building. Students will be scanned periodically throughout the day. There are health and safety guidelines that must be followed throughout the day. In addition to the health screenings and temperature checks, masks must be worn properly, covering the mouth and nose all day. The only exception are when students are on a mask break and are eating. Mask breaks will take place periodically throughout the day. These will take place outdoors, and the students will be further than 6 feet apart during these times. During recess, students will be able to remove masks outdoors, but they will follow social distancing guidelines during this time. If students refuse to wear masks, this will be considered insubordination and will be placed in our virtual academy. Staff will work to maintain 6 feet of separation between students, especially for sustained periods of time, like in the classroom setting. This will not be possible at all times, but our goal is to maintain at least 6 feet of social distancing. So what about meal times? We will serve breakfast and lunch in the classroom for all face-to-face students. This is a part of the district minimizing the movement of students throughout the day. We will still have a pickup meal service available at Northside, K-8, Vaughn Elementary, and Warren County High School for students in the virtual academy. Water fountains will not be in use in the building. We will provide coolers with small bottled waters and spread them throughout the schools for students to be able to have in between meals as needed. Cleanliness and hygiene are very important. We will provide soap and hand sanitizer for use throughout the day. Hand washing with soap and water for 20 seconds or the use of hand sanitizer will be encouraged by all staff and students. Frequent breaks will be incorporated for hand washing and sanitation. Surfaces will be cleaned and sanitized frequently. Paper-based materials such as books and paper are not considered high risk for COVID-19 transmission, and they don't need additional sanitation. We will work to keep student supplies separate and will discourage sharing of materials during this time. We will fog out buses daily and our building several times a week with a COVID-19 killing solution. So what if my child is sick or has had the potential of COVID-19 exposure? Because there are a range of symptoms associated with COVID-19, we ask that any student who does not feel well to remain at home and to contact their healthcare provider. Students who do not have an elevated temperature during the morning screening but subsequently develop symptoms of illness during the school day will be escorted to a designated isolation room, and the parent will be contacted and expected to pick up the child immediately. Parents will have 2 hours to pick up their sick students. All who cannot comply, that student will be placed in virtual academy. Students will not be able to ride the bus home, so it is important that parents have a plan now for getting their students home if they become ill during the school day. Please make sure that the school has accurate contact information on file prior to the first day of in-person learning. Parents of students who are sick and do not come to school are asked to call the school regarding their symptoms if the student is exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms. They will need to seek medical attention before returning to school. Prior to the return of school, students will be required to provide documentation that they sought medical attention and either tested negative for COVID-19 using a test or received an alternative diagnosis. If it is determined by the medical provider that the student does not have COVID-19, students will follow the recommended return to school guidance from their medical provider, which will include not having a fever for 24 hours without the assistance of a fever-reducing medication. If the test results are positive for COVID-19, the students will follow the guidance from their provider in the local health department about when to return to school. Siblings of students who are ill or exhibiting symptoms of COVID will be expected to be picked up or remain at home until documentation of a negative test for COVID is received by the school. Students who have been exposed to COVID-19 will be required to quarantine at home for 14 days after the last day of close contact. As I've stated, this isn't business as usual. We are working to provide our families a face-to-face instruction option through Plan B. Our staff is committed to making this work, and we need your help in supporting these health and safety measures. Warren County Schools will operate in Plan B. We will be polling parents and students in order to make sure we have your correct option. Our potential start date will be March 15th for opening school. We have the following schedule. Week 1, we will begin, which will be March 15th through the 19th. We will begin having pre-K through 2nd grade, and all self-contained students will report to school. On week 2, we will add grades 3, 6, and 9, which will be the week of March 22nd to the 26th. On week 3, we will then add grades 4, 7, and 10, and that will be the week of April 6th through the 9th. And finally, we will be adding grades 5, 8, 11, and 12, and that will be on April 12th through the 16th. Students will be divided into 2 groups, A group and B group. Group A will be in person on Monday and Tuesday and in remote learning for the remainder of the week. Group B will be in person Thursday and Friday and remain in remote learning the remainder of the week, which would be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Please note, Warren County Early College would remain virtual in the alignment with the Vance Granville Community College. And lastly, we need 2.5 to 3 weeks to restock and get cafeterias up and running. We will also continue to provide virtual academy options for our families, and we would encourage you to take advantage of this option if you aren't comfortable with the measures that have been outlined. I also want to reiterate that we may want to come back and revisit Plan C, remote learning only, if we end up in a situation where we see a significant increase in cases in our community that leads to an inability to continue safely and effectively operating in a face-to-face environment. This virus has forced all of us to make adjustments and be responsive since March 2020, and we're committed to continue to do so. We appreciate your patience as we make this transition. Thank you for your support of Warren County Schools.